The next item is the healthy food and drink policy, and again over to you, Phil.
So this item did draw quite a bit of discussion at our committee meeting. I think it should be straightforward today in terms of a policy. About 2 years ago, we as a council asked staff to formulate this policy. It was in conjunction with a remit that had come from the Local Government New Zealand conference, which was all about encouraging more sugar-free drinks, that kind of thing. So it started fairly simply, and it's quite straightforward in terms of the background. Like the World Health Organization has asked for this to happen. Our District Health Board has got a similar policy. I think it's in the report, clear in the report too, that there's already policies in Auckland and in Nelson. So it's not kind of like just out of left field, this one. It's about us as a council taking a leading role in this, so that in fact unhealthy food is simply there's a decrease in the use of that, and I guess it's encouraging a positive sort of food environment for us, which we often support. So it's not about any bans. It's only about encouraging healthy choices. It's certainly got nothing to do. It's not prescriptive at all. It's got absolutely nothing to do with about any policing of what people might eat or drink. So the staff can, I'm sure, will respond to some of the questions that have been raised or might be raised.
Very good. So you'd like to move it?
I'll move it.
And do I have a seconder, Glenn? Jamie? Is this a quick question, is it? Yeah. What is he doing?
He needs the microphone.
Just so everyone knows, then, Kat hasn't got my tongue. We've arranged earlier before the meeting. My microphone was broken, so when I have a question, staff will do it. I just need to alert them in a more. We should have worked on a better signal. We'll work that out at lunch. Anyway,
I think me calling out the word Jamie should be sufficient.
I was trying to be polite. Yeah, anyway, quick question. I understand it's not a ban. Thank you for that, and thank you, Phil, for bringing this to us. Just a quick question about where the likes of the stadium or the Canterbury multi-use arena would sit in relation to that, and also just notwithstanding the fact that, yes, it's an encouragement of healthy foods, but, there is acknowledging there's perhaps a difference between a children's day and then, having some chips while watching a rugby game or something. So where does the stadium sit with this?
Sure. No. Thank you. So we've interpreted the intent of the council resolution when it was passed, talking about council facilities and events. So in other words, council events. So clearly council facilities, the likes of our libraries, recreation centres, and so on, and the council events. So it's the 5 or 6 events that the council team directly puts on. So in relation to your point about other places where council has an interest or an influence, then we would see this policy as being a means to have a discussion with those other places to say, hey, what can we do about this to improve the offerings?
Yeah, Jamie.
Pauline.
I just can't quite find it in the report now, but look, when we get down to the detail about what is healthy and what isn't, so I see in here that somewhere that says that healthy drinks are deemed to be water and milk. But I think a lot of people would object to the fact that milk, whether it is or isn't a healthy drink, a lot of people think that milk is actually very bad for us. So how do we manage that sort of debate?
Sure. So we had a colleague from Community and Public Health who spoke at the Social Committee last week about that. So we would seek to utilise their advice and their input. So they've done a lot of the work in this area already. So certainly in our report we show a very simple traffic light type system, red, amber and green in terms of the way to assess foods. And the report has some descriptors around that, just describing in general terms of how that works. So, yeah, we would like to, and Community and Public Health have offered their help in this area, so we would seek to utilise that. They, by the way, point out in the audits that they did for our facilities at our cafes, or at cafes operating at facilities, when they did their assessments, that quite simple modest changes can be made and recommended to get some real strong benefits in terms of what's offering. So in other words, shifting the needle from the red and the amber more over to the amber and green.
So I would assume this would be a living document anyway, and as research comes available, we can make alterations.
Oh, he's quite correct in terms of the guidelines for the implementation and so on and so forth.
Thank you.
Yanni?
Thank you. I know we're going to get a report back in March 2019. So I was just wondering, there's also a regular review in July that's supposed to be occurring. So I just wondered if there's anything else we need, like if we need more resources to actually do the work. Just because we're going into our annual plan and we're not going to get an opportunity when we get the report in March to influence the annual plan. We're kind of having to do that now. So I just wondered if there was anything that you would like to flag to us in terms of enabling some of the other actions to be complete that haven't been done or are behind that we should be considering.
Yep, so I can provide an update on progress on the Healthy Food Action Plan. So good progress has been made against the actions in that. It's really designed to be proactive and sort of build community capability. So we've put in place a number of programs, the Healthy Food in Schools program. They've also got goals to establish a lot more community gardens, and they've been meeting the goals there of creating 3 community gardens every year. So having a look at the actions, we're confident that good progress is being made, and we'll continue to do that and report back to you in March on those.
Right. And has the food mapping been done? We were going to do some food mapping around the different ways where people could get healthy food from.
I understand some work's been done, so that was sort of where they talked about food deserts. Is that what you're, in terms of where you sort of could access healthy foods?
Yeah, there were two mapping. There was the food environment mapping, which was mapping all publicly available fruit and nut trees, local food markets, edible school, community gardens, fruit and vegetable co-ops, and fresh greengrocers.
Yeah,
and then we were going to make the map available online. And then the second one was around the food deserts. Yeah.
Yeah, so some progress has been made towards that, and we can have a focus on that. And again, a lot of work around sort of establishing those small community gardens, putting fridges into parts of communities. So the mapping.
Okay. Oh, I was more just thinking, like, if we're going to come up with this charter and saying to people, we want you to make healthy choices, I was just wanting to ensure that we get some information online where people can go to get healthy choices.
Absolutely, yep.
So when are we likely to see that?
Well, we can report back on that when we report back in March.
Right. But we've got resource to do that, so we don't need additional resource.
No, we can do that with an existing resource that they've made, yeah.
Okay. And just the second, well, it's really just a flag and amendment that we should be considering public infrastructure as well. So I just wanted to signal that I think it would be really good for us to consider how use of our public infrastructure in terms of promoting healthy food or not promoting unhealthy food. Yeah. And so, it seems to be a gap.
Yeah, we had a report on the latter version of that, but the staff will provide an update on the current action plan to the Social, Community Development and Housing Committee by March 2019. And will include an update on infrastructure, so advertising on infrastructure.
Right, advertising on infrastructure.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
We could look at that then. It's not currently in the action plan.
No, I know, but and will include an update on advertising on infrastructure, on council infrastructure, because then
public. I mean, because I was thinking this would include things like signage on our bus stops. But it doesn't, so I had the view that council facilities would be kind of wider than what's coming.
Apparently there's already been a report on this quite some time ago. Okay. So I don't want to get people to reinvent the wheel, but I kind of want them to get that report out and perhaps update it.
Yeah, we can do that.
Because I'm not unsympathetic to the issue. I know the impact of advertising people don't advertise because it's just a nice way to spend money. They advertise because it makes a difference. And, you know, so if we can use advertising to make a difference to how people think about eating, then that would be a very positive contribution we can make as a city. Dion and then Aaron.
So I just wanted to understand what 5.28 means in the report. When I was reading it, I couldn't quite figure out what you mean by the last sentence.
That paragraph there is simply alerting you to option 2, if we're on the same paragraph point there. Sorry, I'm not quite clear on.
Oh no, it just a genuine option if the council wishes to amend its earlier resolution from 2016, which directed the development of the policy, is the council doesn't adopt the healthy food and drink policy. But I'm a little bit unsure why. I just don't get it. I'm sorry, I might be losing it a bit, but.
No, that's okay. It's simply alerting you to option 2, but option 1 is clearly our preferred option in the staff report.
Because we had council asked them to do it.
Yes, I know council's asked us to look at this, but it just confused me. Still does.
Okay, Aaron?
Yeah, so just a couple of quick questions. Under the staff recommendations, 3.8, an implementation date at council facilities of 1 April 2019, the question would have to be, is that because this is a joke? Okay, that aside, the next one, the more serious question, is around that cultural events would be exempt from this, and so, but then is that not a race-based policy? And the question that got raised by some people when this went in the paper is, aren't things like chips at a fair, a hot dog and candy floss at the AMP show, aren't they culturally what New Zealand's done since we've been here? And so that is part of our culture, is once a year you go to the fair and you have a hot dog with sauce. Is that not our culture? Because it's on tea towels and it's on t-shirts and it's in songs. But it's on our land.
No.
We fund it. The healthy, this policy will apply to lots of events that are on our land. I'm just checking.
No. That we've heard 6 events a year, isn't it? It's our council events that we're talking about.
That will be the focus of the events that we run, yes. Yeah, and otherwise it's sort of setting an example, but we wouldn't actually, have the control over those other events.
I suppose in answer to the question, we would submit there's a distinct difference between some of council's key cultural events that it runs and the almost bland everyday nature of hot dogs and chips. So there is a difference, we would say, in terms of people going along to cultural events and having some expectations of purchasing certain types of cultural foods that they'll be expecting to be on offer there. So for those reasons, we've decided to, recommending that's exempt in terms of the foods, although we would seek to be working with all of the events when it comes to some pretty low-hanging fruits such as sugar-sweetened beverages.
Yeah. It's not. Yeah. Okay. So I've got a mover as in Phil and seconded by Glenn. That's right, I've already said that. Yeah. Is there any discussion? Yanni, Dion, Aaron.
Thanks. I just think, this is a very small step, voluntary, not mandatory, encouraging and trying to change behaviour. But what we know very clearly is that the multinationals use huge marketing budgets to target people who are most susceptible to making poor choices about healthy food. And actually someone said that this was started by something, actually it was also the petition that came in from people that were concerned in Linwood where the KFC had gone non-notified across the road from a local primary school, where the kids can sit in class and smell the odours of fast food cooking. And, you know, it's part of that which I think we should not lose sight of, is that people actually want us to do more around the proliferation of unhealthy food outlets in some of the poorest areas of the city. We have direct control over a number of things, and this is one thing that we can actually just get on and do. But also actually AdShell, when they changed to the digital display boards, we were told that they acknowledged concern about the display of inappropriate messaging in sensitive locations such as adjacent to schools, and that they will continue to review any proposed advertising to ensure that it's appropriate for the location and reject any unsuitable advertising. We were told that there can be further discussion between AdShell and Council concerning the use of digital panels for local community messaging. So maybe we could actually get some promotion of healthy food choices on those existing digital bus stops that have been put in. But we do get money from fast food advertising through our bus stops. So, you know, we need to actually do something on this. And I think we've got more than enough mechanisms to do so. And it says we receive a share of the revenue generated by AdShell's advertising signs for investment back into the community. And so we need to address the issue of signage. We also see fast food outlets repeatedly get consents for non-complying signage. So district planning needs to be looked at as well. But, you know, this is a small step. There's a lot of other things that we signalled that we would do that we are working through. And I just think we need to give some urgency to those other things that we can do other than just this policy that we're putting in place. And I think, you know, if we want to make the biggest impact, then we do need a holistic approach, and we also need central government, who I think are now starting to recognise the impact of obesity and unhealthy eating on our society in terms of health and well-being, to actually also come on board and provide some support. So, you know, let's do what we can do, but there's a lot more that we need to do, and let's keep the focus on doing that.
Dion.
Yeah, I'm going to ask if you can make 4 separate pleas. The reason why is I won't be supporting number 1, 2, 3. I'm very supportive of healthy food and options for people, but I just feel uncomfortable with this report, the way it's written, and the potential implications of when we're looking at our council-owned facilities, and the way we will be looking at leases and prioritising leases to people who provide healthy food over others who provide other things. So from that point of view, I just feel a little bit uncomfortable supporting it in this, supporting 1, 2 and 3, but I'm very keen to support number 4. And the reason that I do support that is because actually that's where I think the biggest impact will be. I don't want to be the person that limits what people do, but actually if we look at how people are seeing messaging and things like that, that's actually something we can do as a council, and that's where I think we should be focusing some of our attention.
Aaron?
Yeah, so I struggle with this one, and I'm on the DHB, so people think, oh, you have to vote for this. Not necessarily so. I've seen some of their policies at DHB, and they're not actually that great. If you've ever been in hospital, the meals are pretty average, and struggle to tick all the boxes nutritionally. And in their drink fridges, they have diet sodas and no full sugar sodas. Diet sodas are worse for you than full sugar sodas. If you look at any of the evidence, it will clearly show that. You've got you double your chances of having heart attacks and strokes. So it's faux healthiness. And the question I'd ask here is, this is a dangerous step for the council to be taking, because how far does our reach go into other people's lives? Are we here to facilitate the way people live in our city, or to dictate to them the way we want them to live in our city? Education is the key to people having healthy diets. Food, and I'll say this, I'll repeat myself and try and draw everyone's attention, food needs to be a key part of the curriculum in schools, because New Zealanders do not know what they put in their mouths. Most people at this table couldn't name how much protein's in an egg or a slice of bread or the sugars in an apple, because we never learnt it. Unless you've gone and done food science, you do not know it. Yet we have math every single day, math not meth, math every single day at school, or depending on the school, and you don't die if you can't add 2 and 2 together. But if you put the wrong things in your mouth, you shorten your life and you die. Food must become, and that comes from Jamie Oliver, must come into our curriculum if we want to tackle this problem. It doesn't come from the council saying, when there's an event in a park, your kids can't have a treat. If you're that addicted to sugar and fat and salt, you'll just buy 3 scoops of chips on your way to the park event and have it. You won't buy the lentil burger that the council told you to buy at the event. I will buy the lentil burger. I like lentil burgers. I think they're fantastic. But other people should have the choice on what they want to purchase at these events. So I believe the council should not be stepping into the space and telling people how and what to eat and when and where to eat it, because if they've got problems, they will buy their 2 litres of fizzy on the way home and they will gulp it down with I had a friend that can eat $20 worth of fish and chips in a hit. That's when everything was $1. So
Jamie, Glenn, Sarah.
Good. Thanks. Look, accessibility of anything is always going to have an impact on its uptake. So I'm the last person in the world that wants a nanny state telling people what to do and how to live their lives. But this simply isn't it. If someone has a strong desire to eat some bad food, then I can promise them they don't have far to go if they want to do that. So no one's banning the less healthy food options throughout the city. This is simply a desire for our council to lean towards healthy options in council facilities and at council events. We want these to be family environments, and we want those facilities and environments to have good offerings and good food choices. Now, to be really honest with you, you learn a few things, hopefully, after sitting on the council for a few years. And I actually think the secret to being a good councillor is just making decisions that are the right thing to do. So no one's forcing anyone to eat something that they don't want to eat. If they want to eat rubbish, they can eat all the rubbish they want. But this is the right decision in helping others make those right calls themselves. So very supportive of it. It's the right approach, and like I said, it's fundamentally the right thing to do.
Glenn?
Thank you. When we were kids, my dad sold scales for a living, and in the 1970s, when he decided to knock off taking sugar in his tea, he said, "Look, kids, watch this," and he piled up all the teaspoons of sugar he used to have for each cup and each day and each week, and then he said, "Look, White Death," and I think he's right. So that certainly left an impression. I think as far as sugar goes, the drinks aren't necessarily bad. It's the fact that they've been promoted or they've been broadcast. So if you get into a few endurance events, you need sugar, but that's more a narrow cast environment. So I think this is part of the problem here, that the target is way off beam. In my view, it's important for the council to take a lead in the social battle against obesity. And the problem is, when people talk about choices, many parents and many children aren't making choices because they don't know what the choices are. So it's up to us to actually offer them a range here so that they don't default to fast food, because it's just that, it's fast, quick and easy and cheap. Good food costs more, and for me there's something in here about a conversation with central government over taking GST off fresh fruit and veggies. I feel particularly for Yarni's ward. I drive through the Linwood and Buckley's intersection quite often. It's like shooting fish in a barrel for poorer people. That intersection is crowded with fast food, and now a blimmin' vaping shop as well. Fast food outlets. So this is the messaging they're getting, and they're going to default to that because it's quick and easy. So surely we can take a lead. That's another piece of work, Yarni. I agree on it, so the district plan. But yeah, I'm fully supportive of this.
Sarah?
Thank you. I just want to briefly address a couple of Councillor Kewen's points. And the first is with 2 things that my parents taught me, words to live by, and in regarding the CDHB policies, is that 2 wrongs don't make a right, and this is just a debate. And that just because one organisation chooses to have policies that aren't what we would wish doesn't mean that we shouldn't do ones that we should. And the other is on the issue with the proliferation of fast food throughout the communities. And just because you can't do everything doesn't mean that you shouldn't do what you can. And with that, I will crack my low-calorie soda and have a sip. Phil's going to close off the debate, so Mike.
Thank you. I can't see. A lot of people saying that we're becoming the food police around here. It's definitely not the case. Trying to encourage people to eat healthy food is not becoming food police. It's actually the right thing to do, and it's only at a few council events. And so, like Jamie said, there's going to be the ability to buy the junk food if you really want it. But I think Yanni's right, that there's a bigger issue here, and it's the amount of fast food outlets we're seeing popping up in Christchurch all around the city, and the amount of advertising that we see, and also that we allow to happen. Just look at Coca-Cola Christmas in the park. When you're putting this advertisement in front of people all the time, of course they're going to be wanting to eat this food, and the impacts it has on the community is actually quite great when we see what the obesity rates are currently in New Zealand. We are one of the worst in the world. So look, what we're doing here is actually tiny, and may have a small impact, but it's not going to be great. And I think we need to address some of the bigger problems we're seeing, and that is the advertising and the amount of fast food outlets that are occurring.
Okay. Before I call Phil, I'll just say one thing, and that is that I had the pleasure of meeting Jamie Oliver, and you reminded me of that. And what is going to hit New Zealand and the rest of the world is a tsunami of diabetes, type 2 diabetes. And when the public health system can't cope with the consequences of that, then I don't think anyone's going to mind whether it's the Christchurch City Council or the DHB or a government department, or whether community groups take responsibility for changing the way that our young people are taught to eat. Parents, I feel so sorry for them, because they are up against these giants of multinational corporations who buy advertising during their television programs. They buy advertising all around the place, and they don't do it because they think that it's a nice thing to do to have their products shown there. They do it to encourage people to buy and to want, to desire. I remember a father telling me once that his child knew the M for McDonald's before the child knew that it was a letter of the alphabet. So I just don't think anyone should underestimate the power of these organisations, but don't underestimate the price that we will pay when we face a tsunami of type 2 diabetes that we won't be able to reverse. So this is a small contribution, a tiny contribution. It's something that we're going to work through a staged implementation at council events. We're not going to force people to make healthy choices. We're going to make healthy choices an option. So over to you, Phil, to close the debate.
Well, thank you, Leanne, and look, thank you, councillors, for the debate. I guess as I've listened to it, it's become absolutely clear that, in fact, around healthy eating, yep, we do need a policy. We need to know where we're going with all of this. Because in a way, I guess, basically, healthy eating should not be rocket science. We have got a fair idea of what all of that is. But I think our key role at making this decision today is about showing leadership, that we actually join with the DHB so that, in fact, we try and reduce the huge problems that Leanne has referred to around obesity and diabetes. They're like a ticking time bomb. And the people it's going to affect us most in this country are our children. that's why it seems to me now, it's very clear, policies like this and the action plan to follow it are just so important. There's nothing in the paper today which is hinting at anything dictatorial, and I thank Councillor Gough for making some very sensible comments in relation to this very important policy too. And I certainly agree with Councillor Johansson, and Leanne referred to it, about the issue of advertising, and that's something else that through the action plan we can address. So I urge councillors to strongly support this today. Thank you.
I will put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. That's carried. And Dion Swiggs and Aaron Kewen oppose.
I support